Hello, I'm Robin Terrero. My guest today is a gentleman by the name of Mark Till. Mark and I are going to be talking about a group of nutritional supplements called glyconutrients. You may never have heard of glyconutrients, but they are remarkable in the strides it is making in improving health and wellness. Mark, thank you so much for being here today and talking with me about this new discovery, if you will, of glyconutrients. Let's get right into it. What are glyconutrients?
Basically a new class of nutrients. We've all heard of something like essential amino acids and essential fatty acids, and we've all heard of vitamins and minerals. Those are categories or classes of nutrients. And in the last few years, science has discovered an entirely new class called glyconutrients. And what they are is a special group of carbohydrates that the body uses in any number of ways internally beyond just for energy. That's part of the reason that some people have actually resisted embracing this new group of nutrients, because forever we've known that carbohydrates are what the body uses for energy. And so when we come along and say that carbohydrates have a different purpose within the body, when the paradigm has always been that they're what the body burns for energy, it was hard for people to embrace that.
Right, because as a pharmacist, when I hear the word glyco, as in glyconutrients, I think of sugar. And when we think of sugar, we typically think of it as being an energy source.
Right.
And anything beyond being an energy source, we think of it as being bad for us.
Correct. But there are actually over 200 carbohydrates or sugars in nature that we know of. And the vast majority of them are burned for energy, but there's a small select group that has a totally different function in the body. And that's what glyconutrients are. Those 8 specific carbohydrates that have a newly discovered function in the body.
So there's 8 of them, 8 specific sugars, if you will,
yes,
carbohydrates. Based in science?
Totally. It was actually discovered initially by a pharmaceutical company looking to find new drugs. A lot of times they will go out and find something that has been touted by medicine men over the years as something, and they'll try to find out what the component of that element is that gives it its benefit, and then they'll try to build a synthetic version of that to make a drug.
So they can patent it.
That's exactly right. Well, what happened was a pharmaceutical company was trying to find the active ingredient in aloe vera. Well, we've known for thousands of years that aloe vera, they talked about it in the Bible. Everybody has one in their kitchen window. So what happened in the 80s was a pharmaceutical company was trying to find the active component of aloe vera. They identified it as mannose, which is a carbohydrate, and they developed a process to stabilize it so you could take it out and it would have a shelf life. And that was the initial discovery of it. Well, then there's been numerous testing through, when you take a drug to market, you got to go through testing. And so they went through all kinds of tests.
Yeah.
But something interesting happened. There was a medical textbook called Harper's Biochemistry.
Okay.
And they used this textbook in about 80 of our America's 120 universities. And in 1996, they had a new chapter in this textbook that outlined that on the surface of every cell, let's say my hand is a cell. On the surface of every cell are attached to it proteins, and they're like little trees, okay? And attached to the proteins are little limbs, and these limbs are made up of carbohydrates. 8 carbohydrates, and one of them was mannose.
Mannose.
Exactly.
Found in the aloe vera.
That's exactly right.
So this is completely different than vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, essential amino acids.
Yes. This
is a whole new class of nutritionals.
Exactly.
That's very exciting.
It is exciting to someone who understands the depth of it. You know, and I know, and maybe the general public doesn't know, the Royal Navy used to have a disease called scurvy. The sailors got it. And then one day a sailor sucking on a lime didn't get scurvy.
Right.
So they all started sucking on limes, and then they started calling the sailors limeys. Okay. They later discovered it was the vitamin C in the lime that allowed it to work. Okay, so scurvy was a dreaded disease that would kill you in 6 weeks or so after you found out about it, unless you ate vitamin C. So it was reclassified as a vitamin deficiency, and then it was no big deal.
These 8 sugars then make up the components of glyconutrition.
That's exactly right.
What do these little sugars do that are out there on these little limbs?
I wish there were a way I could explain that in one sentence, but there's not. So to make it as simple as possible, I was at Chicago O'Hare International Airport recently, and I was on the runway, And I was looking out one window and I saw planes taking off every 90 seconds on a couple of different runways and landing every 90 seconds. And I looked out the other window down the terminal, and there was 2 terminals, and there's like 20 of them there, I don't know. But in each of these 2 terminals, there were like 20 planes. And I looked, and passengers were getting on and getting off, and luggage was moving from one plane to the next and across to the next terminal. And it was just fascinating. And I thought to myself, my gosh, they must have an incredible communication network to make all this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the complexity of Chicago O'Hare International Airport is nothing compared to the complexity of our anatomy and how our body works, and primarily how our immune system functions. These 8 glyconutrients on the surface of our cells, the way they connect together, allow the cells to communicate. And when the cells cannot communicate, you and I cannot be healthy. They're like Braille, if you will, to a blind person. Okay? When the cells touch each other, they read those carbohydrates, and they can communicate about the DNA inside the cell. They can communicate about the health of the cell. Is it a healthy cell? Does it need vitamin C? Does it need vitamin D? Is it damaged, and does it need antioxidants? Or maybe the immune cell that floats along and actually touches this cell realizes it's a damaged cell. The DNA was damaged when the new cell was made, and it's a cancerous cell. The immune system comes along, touches it, says, yeah, you're part of this body. You have the same DNA, but you're messed up. You're weird. You're really dangerous. You're cancerous. He grabs a hold of it.
So it helps our cells even tell each other that they're sick.
Exactly. So in this case, he grabs a hold of the cancer cell and tries to eat it and kill it himself. And if he can't, through the carbohydrates, he sends a message through the body, send me natural killer cells that come and attack the cancer cell. And that happens to you and to me every day, 1,000 times a day. But when there's not enough carbohydrates on the surface of the cell, he can't recognize that as a cancer cell, and he doesn't try to kill it. And then the cancer cell grows, multiplies, and becomes a tumor or some other type of cancer.
We can't make the statement that these glyconutrients heal.
That's correct.
From what I've learned just in a short time with me talking to you is that these sugars enable us to heal our cells.
That's exactly what they do. If you cut your hand, your body says, we're bleeding. We need coagulants to stop the bleeding. That's communication. Then it says, we need immune cells to come fight infection and bacteria, and doctors would call that purulent exudate. But it's white blood cells to protect infection. Then it says we need plasma to come and make a scab, and then more of different types of plasma to make a scar. All that is about communication. The body can heal itself if it has the components to do it. And you can put vitamins and minerals and herbs and drugs or anything else in your body all day long, but if your body cannot communicate about what to do with them, it doesn't matter. These glyconutrients allow the body to communicate about what to do with the other parts and raw materials that we're supposed to get in our diet. Every sickness, every disease that we get, every virus or bacteria that our body fights, every cancer that we have, the immune system tries to manage it, kill it, repair it, fix it, whatever. And it can only do that if it can communicate about the problem. And what's interesting is, since we discovered these glycoproteins on the surface of our cells, there's a group of people that begin to believe that if you would supplement your diet with the glyconutrients, that your body could rebuild those structures of glycoproteins. And if your body rebuilds a structure, it can enable normal function. And when the body functions normally, it kills cancer. Cancer doesn't kill you. When the body functions normally, it doesn't attack itself with an autoimmune disease called Crohn's or multiple sclerosis or allergies or asthma or arthritis. Those are autoimmune diseases. And the body doesn't do that when it functions normally. The body has to have the glycoproteins to have the structure to enable proper function.
Why do we not have these glyconutrients in our diets?
Because our diets have changed. First of all, we overwork our soils and don't let them rest and rejuvenate themselves. We just put another crop in there and throw more potassium and more nitrogen on to make everything green. But the nutrients that the plants need are not there anymore, or not as many as there should be. Secondly, we oftentimes harvest our produce and such while it's still green, ship it and let it ripen along the way. Well, you can take a tomato from your garden, pull it while it's starting to turn red and let it ripen in your window, leave another tomato on the same plant, and when they're both ripe, take out the seeds and grow them. And the seeds from the one that ripened in the window, that plant will be small and witherly and gnarly and weak. And the one that ripened on the vine will be vibrant and strong and bold and produce well for you. We're supposed to get those same chemicals, but we harvest things green. The third reason is our selection of diet. We go down to the local heart attack in a sack. And just because they tell us what's in it and all that, it doesn't make it good. So those are three of the key reasons why we don't get these in our diets the way we did when we were hunter-gatherers living in a garden somewhere.
Because I truly believe that everything that we need for good health is provided by nature.
Yes.
And it's being proven in science through studying nutrition, because our knowledge of nutrition is increasing at such a rapid rate. I think it's second to our knowledge of computer technologies. But the fact that we don't have these in our diet, that we're not getting these essential sugars, if you will, in our diet, is because of the way we're processing our foods and the diets that we choose to consume to begin with.
The selection, exactly.
Okay. And so this is true also for vitamins and minerals and the other components?
Well,
how are the sugars different than the vitamins and minerals?
Well, to that extent about getting them in our diet, it's exactly the same. We don't get enough of those either. I mean, 3 years ago, I think, for the first time, the American Medical Association came out, and Time Magazine had a big cover story. It said they put supplements at the top of the food pyramid because we can't get enough nutrition. When I was a little boy, they told us to eat 3 to 5 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables a day. By the time I got to college, they were saying 5 to 9 servings, and I didn't like them in the first place, and now they want me to eat more? Yeah. And now they've changed it again. They say eat 10 to 20. You can't eat that many without getting gas. It's just impossible.
And the reason you're supposed to eat so much more is because they're not rich in vitamins, minerals, sugars.
But there's also another reason. The other reason is we've poisoned our world. The chemicals in the air, in the food we eat, in the water we drink, in the dry cleaning that we bring home underneath the bag and hang in our closet, the glue in the carpet, all those chemicals affect our body. And so our body works to try to defend and repair itself from those, and it needs more nutritional support than ever before because of that very thing. So those are the two big reasons we don't get enough in our diet. It's interesting when you look at these glyconutrients compared to any other nutritional whatever, the body it has a series, trillions of factories. Every cell is a factory. They manufacture things. They manufacture hormones. They manufacture insulin. They manufacture glycoproteins. They manufacture all kinds of things. But to manufacture something, you have to have the raw parts, the raw materials to do that. Well, that's what nutrition is supposed to do, and we don't get enough of it.
My doctor not know about these.
To be quite honest, I have a number of doctors that I consult with and work with, and I ask all of them because I want to know the answer. And the bottom line is they get about one class on nutrition in medical school, and then they get on to the good stuff in their mind. And once they get out of medical school, virtually all of their continuing education comes from the sources of treatments and cures, which is pharmaceutical companies. And we're talking about nutrition, not pharmaceuticals. We're talking about supporting the body's ability to function normally so it can heal itself and defend itself from virtually any sickness or disease. There's another problem there, that even though the physiology or the biology is now in medical textbooks and it started being taught a couple of years ago, one of the things that doctors are taught is that your body can manufacture these. Well, that's true, but that's not the whole truth.
The body can manufacture these sugars?
Exactly. We have things like essential amino acids. The reason they're called essential, Robin, is because your body can't make them. There's certain amino acids your body can synthesize. Certain that it can't, But these carbohydrates are not called essential, although they are required. They're vital. The reason they're not called essential is because your body can manufacture them. And this created a problem for me when I first began to study this. I'm thinking, wait a minute. If your body can make them, why would you need to eat them?
Good question.
When we were hunter-gatherers and we would go through the year eating different foods, we would get different glyconutrients, and at any one time we might not get fucose or mannose or xylose. So our body can make it until next week or next month we eat something else that has that in it. Our bodies were never designed to make 6 of them all the time.
All the time.
That's the problem.